is it wrong or weird for me to admit that I'm probably more excited about this release than I have been about Living World releases? Yes, guys, it just went live. If you were paying attention last week, you'll already know about this, but there was a big reveal. The Crown Pavillion and Festival of the Four Winds, both together, are being re-implemented to Guild Wars as a seasonal festival, and the patch for that went less than an hour ago live, coming with some pretty hefty patch notes I've got in game, managed to play a little bit for you. Now, I'm going to do multiple videos on this. This first one, we're just going to look at the core features and revamps that they talk about on the notes and the straight up things that people are excited by. And then, of course, as we always see with these festivals, there's tons of extra hidden things that are nowhere near touched or glanced by the devs officially in a patch note capacity, which we'll talk about a bit later. There is honestly so much to do in this festival. It could just be because it's been years and years and years, but it feels like this festival is bigger than, say, Halloween or Winter's Day, and they, too, have got a hell of a lot of different moving parts with them. So, yeah, let's jump on in. Got tons of different stuff to show, plenty more footage like this video started with what the devs say for the July 24th release notes. Festival of the Four Winds. They have a little explanation here, and this is the same as what you are mailed with, as you can see in the background. So here's what the devs say. On behalf of Queen Jenna of Rite and the Captain's Council of Lion's Arch, you are cordially invited to participate in the return of the Festival of the Four Winds. High atop the labyrinthine cliffs, our Zephyrite friends have been working in tandem with Lion's Arch to host an incredible variety of fun vendors and events to entertain visitors from all across Tyria. This celebration of unity and peace between our cultures is more important than ever before, and we hope that you will join us in the festivities. In the spirit of cooperation, Queen Jenna has personally overseen the reopening of the Crown Pavillion, featuring a variety of challenges, both new and old, for Tyria's finest to test their mettle. Transportation to the festivities could be easier. Special hot air balloons are now stationed in each nation's capital city. Visitors can also sail directly by ship from Lion's Arch, and we look forward to seeing you at the festival. So, a few things just to say at the header of all of this. We were told by the devs there was a bit of a story wrapper explaining, you know, what's going on with the Zephyrites now. This mail doesn't really describe any of that. You have to think about this mail in terms of, oh, you might be reading this in 5 years' time. They keep it as generic as possible. But there are some nice little hints. The fact that Queen Jenna personally oversaw the Crown Pavillion, you actually do find her as an NPC speaking to you in-game. Here, you can see.
Welcome, everyone. If you haven't, I encourage all citizens to visit our Zephyrite friends on the Labyrinthine Cliffs. The Festival of the Four Winds belongs to all of us. It is a reminder of the heights we can achieve together.
And I can't remember whether it was like that last time the Crown Pavillion was around. So they have the confidence to have it there. I think, if you ask me, that's a suggestion she's not likely to die or anything at any point soon in the story. But yeah, the big takeaway, obviously, is to get there. They've got these hot air balloons. The hot air balloons aren't new. They were seen back when the Watch Knights and so forth originally came to this game before their long, lengthy hiatus. And then there's the ship, too. If you go to Lion's Arch, you'll see now, in that area near the lighthouse, you've got the airship that was added with POF next to a hot air balloon, next to the ship that took us to Chlor Island. There's that icon on the mini-map, on the world map as well, that is vaguely reminiscent of the ship you used to click in Guild Wars 1 to travel between regions. And yeah, you kind of get your choice. If you go to the Labyrinthine Cliffs via hot air balloon, you appear at the top. If you go by ship, you appear at the bottom like we did all those years ago. So what else do the devs have to say here? That the Zephyrite Bazaar has returned to the Labyrinthine Cliffs. Visitors can try their hand at many new festival activities, including new adventures, races, and scavenger hunt. And they only tease at it here on the patch notes. What do they say? Show your skill with Zephyrite crystals in the new and improved Flying Dolliac race, which I have yet to play, and I'm thrilled to look at. Enjoy the sight of the sea in the bay, spanning Skimmer Slalom Race. Team up with your friends to plunder lost treasure in the Treasure Hunt meta event. All three of these bullet points totally new. Scramble to set a high score in the Crystal Collection adventure. So remember, before, collecting these crystals was purely a one-time thing that was tied to a achievement and then a second more difficult achievement. Seems like now it'll be repeatable. Get as many crystals as fast as you can. Compete with other people. It's in adventure mode now. Demonstrate your aviation ability in 2 new Griffin adventures. I mean, it's just so much stuff. And then finally, we hear some things we have heard about from years past. Compete to take the lead in Sanctum Sprint as an activity, which is never disabled for the rest of the year, so I don't know why this is part of the festival. I was hoping we'd see some kind of mount interaction with that now, but I haven't been in. The suggestion for the patch notes is they didn't do it. Maybe you guys can set me right in the comments. They say challenge the competition with unique Zephyrite skills in the returning Aspect Arena. That's an old PvP-ish format, which I've pretty much forgotten everything about, and is one of the high points of me coming back to this festival, just so I can go back and play that. Leap across the labyrinthine cliffs to recover Zephyrite crystals and discover the fate of the Bazaar's fallen star, Kukukachu the Incredulous, which I don't know whether was in the previous festival. Sounds new to me. And last but not least, it is a bazaar after all. Trade materials with the Zephyrites for a new Zephyrite supply box containing a wide variety of possible items, including exceptionally rare skins and equipment from distant lands. Now, I believe you can right-click preview this, and if you can, you should see it in the background. You can pause the video if you guys want to see exactly what I'm mousing over there. I did hear rumors that the Chak Egg Sack might be in that as well. And of course, that means an economy sync. So they did do a little bit of this. I speculated last week with the announcement of this that they might go for it. I'm not seeing anything particularly special they're draining from the economy, just generic stuff like various types of wood and leather and cloth and so on. And I guess we'll see how that goes forward. Ectos are one of the big things people are looking at for the economy with the game lately, because Ectos have just fluctuated so much since Path of Fire's release, and I'm not sure how much this patch has addressed that. But there you go. That's just the Zephyrite Cliffs, the Bazaar. I'm also hearing some beautiful music you guys saw at the start of the video if you listened to the background as I was first exploring it today, which I don't remember from before either. I asked some guildies and said, hey, is this new music or old? Apparently it is old music, and I just had no memory of such a badass soundtrack for the map, but it felt really exciting and cool to go back, and it's mostly all this stuff on this list you'll see in subsequent videos coming up from me. Really cool. Then there is, for combat inclined festival goers, the Crown Pavillion, which is reopened in Divinity's Reach, and this I've played a reasonable amount before talking to you here today. So challenge recreations of humanity's greatest foes, legendary champions, and notorious figures. So the big changes here are the renowned boss blitz returns. Organize your companions to challenge 6 legendary foes. They'll gain strength as other bosses fall, so plan your battles carefully. This is the meta we were familiar with from before. If you guys don't recall this, players can trigger it, and then you have a time limit to kill 6 bosses. If you do it really quickly by splitting your 100-man Zerg across all the different areas, if they all die really fast, you can get the gold speed and the biggest reward. If you're kind of mediocre at it, you'll get the silver reward, and if you're kind of slow at it, you'll just get a regular reward, and time will go on infinitely until you get the regular reward, the bronze reward. Now, the footage in the background you are looking at is my first attempt this year with people bleary-eyed wandering back into the content for the first time right as the patch came out, and we got bronze. I'm sure people will min-max this and figure it out later, but I was actually really happy to see bronze. Because remember, there's been a lot of power difference in the game now. Power creep. People are a lot stronger. People are generally just a bit better at the game. And I was worried that the Zergs would be hammering it and it would be all gold rewards all the time like we see with regular dynamic events interior. And that little bit of flavor there wouldn't be there. It seems like there will be a little bit of experimentation to figure out the best way to do it. Reading more of the bullet points, some other chart stuff has changed, of course, which the devs did announce last week, but here, a fearsome enemy has replaced the ogre combatants. The White Mantle cult now patrols one of the Pavillion sections, and you can confront lifelike recreations of Kryta's enemy in the name of the Crown. And their big boss, I believe, I didn't fight it, but in the footage I did see the other players killed it when he died. I think it's Pavillion, which is kind of nice, and you guys will recognize the ghost from with the Bloodstone Fen release, and is one of my favorite Guild Wars 1 Prophecies characters. And so with a new boss, you have to remember in the White Mantle, when these bosses die, they give a buff to all their remaining allied bosses that get spread around. And Pavilion's one, the new one, is like a teleportation thing. So if you kill Pavillion really early, all the other bosses get this. Or that's what it sounded like anyway, the active effect. You also get adventurers yearning to show their skill at solo challenge rejoice as the Queen's Gauntlet reopens at last. Test your mettle against powerful opponents with returned adversaries returning and a new set of special encounters to further hone your skill. So what I've already been describing is the Zerg-oriented stuff. There is the single player, which is obviously really exciting. That I haven't played yet, but word is that if you play something heavy Condi Bomb related, it's very poorly tuned and easy. So while the devs may have been alright at the Zerg heavy stuff, it seems like maybe the pride of that old challenging single player content might have been hit a bit, unfortunately. We'll see. And then lastly, this cool bullet point here, you're looking at it in the background. Between blitzes, blow off some steam in the most hazardous festival race yet, the Pavillion Pursuit. So not only did they do all these updates and new systems for the Bazaar, but over here there is a new race as well. And I played it, again, I think it was the first time any of us were doing it. And I did terribly, guys. I came like 43rd. It was not good, but I tried to do it on the Beetle, which you're about to hear in this video, has had its own set of improvements and things. So I was playing with the Beetle as much as possible, and believe me, you want something slow and steady for that one. You want something like a Skimmer or a Raptor. If you go the wrong way even slightly, you can fall off a cliff and get caught in combat by tons of mobs. They describe it here as the most hazardous festival rate. Yeah, that's because it goes through combat-heavy enemy zones. And it's quite good the way they've done it. It's, you go boss blitz and then the race, if you like, and then boss blitz and then the race. I anticipate that by the time this festival is coming to its drawing days, most people will have already done the race and they won't be interested in doing it much more because it's not particularly rewarding. But at least for now, at the start, it's something fun everyone's doing for their achievements and whatnot. And it was cool seeing a really heavily mass-populated race just because I got to it as soon as the patch came out. I've been missing that in the other festivals in Living World just because I take things so slowly. So, that is the two large regions of the world that are now available for exploration. Hopefully, I've done a reasonable explanation of what's there. Then there are some other changes for the festival in general. I'll whiz through these a bit quicker. Zephyrite kite basket supplies have been scattered across Tyria. You can open them to claim prizes from the Zephyrite stockpiles. Now, this is the return of something we don't see that much, but was all over Living World Season 1. Which is, even if you're not actively in the new areas of the game that have been added, as long as you're a Guild Wars 2 player playing the game during this festival, you're likely to find some of these other events and things going on, so your gameplay can be affected. That was something the original game was very good at, that was something many MMOs are good at, and Living World releases don't hit so well, so I was happy to see this again returning. I'm pretty sure it was some implementation we saw many years ago, just often overlooked. They say, earn festival tokens and favors of the festival throughout the festival events to trade for exciting prizes, including new Zephyrite backpacks, the illustrious Sovereign weapon set, which is old but been inaccessible for ages, and items based on the latest wonder of the Crown Pavilion, the Watch Knight Mark II. Now, I've also been hearing rumors that you might be able to upgrade Sovereign weapons this festival. If that's true, you'll definitely see the detail on the upcoming videos too. That's pretty fascinating. If so, I just want to complete my regular set for now, but that sounds pretty fun also. They say numerous bugs and glitches have been fixed to ensure a safer and more pleasant festival for all participants. Something tells me this on the patch notes doesn't really mean anything to us as players, right? But something tells me it's on there anyway because this was probably a bulk of the workload for the devs, so they want it to be like known and appreciated what they did. And then lastly, the Festival of the Four Winds will be available for 3 weeks. It's not a 2-week festival, it's the full 3 weeks from July the 24th, right now as I speak to you today, down till August the 14th. So nice long summer festival. And if you think as well about the gap between August 14th and then Halloween coming a little bit later, it's not even that big. So there you have it. The patch notes now move on to broader game systems, much of which is pretty interesting, and the reason why I wanted to do this video now, kind of separate to the grittier details about the festival itself upcoming. So, Living World Festival, they say that the Help Your Allies Secure Key Positions in Awakened Inquest Facility event has had a few corn and chests added as completion rewards, and that corn and chests now include guaranteed inscribed shard drops. So, it's nice to see more corner updates, but it's not much, obviously, and with the state that Gandara is currently in and how many flippant comments there were from the devs over the AMA, the AFC, the streams, and all of this to do with this release and what's lacking from this release, I hope that there will be something more substantial coming to Corner. Maybe once this festival rolls out, that would be a nice tide over right the way down till Episode 4's release a bit after. But this is what we get for now. Very, very small change. I guess it's on their minds, and we'll have to wait and see. I don't really have my fingers crossed too tightly, but you never know. Next, we got general stuff. This will excite the RPers. I feel like I'm playing RuneScape looking at this, but check it out. Added new animations to transition characters from standing to sitting in chairs. And also some other changes to chairs. Added an error message explaining that if you're transformed, you can't use a chair, and your equipped weapons are now properly hidden while sitting in chairs. So another chair update. Chairs still haven't been expanded to areas of Tyria outside of the cities. It's still just in those main RP hubs, if you will. But this was one of those janky things about chairs that made it look kind of work in progress and a sub-feature. That they were only willing to put out, say, with April Fools rather than really get behind. Yeah, if you look now on the footage, when you press F on a chair, I tried out in Lion's Arch, you do get a real animation where you look behind yourself a little bit, make sure that there's not a bug on there or a pin or something, and then you slowly lower your keister down onto it. So I'm sure that with all the different chair varieties in the game, there might be some slightly different versions based on what you're sitting on, but it seems pretty appropriate for pretty much everything. And in fact, the Crown Pavillion 2 has chairs in it. I wonder whether the Bazaar has chairs in it as well. They went to add some of those somewhere near Queen Jenna, I think it is. You can sit down in one of the chairs. So that's kind of cool. Other general changes include this one, where they fixed a bug preventing the Alpha Beetle event in the Fast Silver Wastes from spawning. People will have realized that that exists because, of course, you have to kill that beetle to get the roller beetle mount from the corner release. They say they fixed an issue involving shadow flickering on GeForce GTX 10 series graphics cards. Now, I'm actually on a GeForce 10 series graphics card, and I sometimes get flickering issues, but not necessarily shadows. It's more like weird UI-oriented stuff that I've always thought was to do with my reshade implementation. But yay, I guess. I don't know whether that hit me, but I'll now sleep easy knowing it might never in future anyway. And then finally, fix an issue in which glider skins failed to fade out correctly when opening and closing the hero panel. Don't forget, over a lot of the updates this year, the hero panel has had various refinements and improvements in terms of its efficiency and how it functions, so they're just continuing along with that. They have a medium-sized section on items here now, because of course with the return of a very old festival and content, you're gonna have to do some housekeeping on those old items and things. So favors of the Pavillion and favors of the Bazaar, which are the two big iconic items associated with these two new areas of the world, are now account bound. Existing favors have become weathered favors and can still be traded. You can double click a weathered favor to convert it to an account bound favor. So realistically, what this means is that those of you who hoarded all that old stuff, you can still offload it onto the TP if you like, but they want you to have it account bound to then get all the juicy trade-in stuff afterwards. And I think that's more just holding this in line with similar items and functionalities you see with Winter's Day and Halloween. Some items from other holidays, such as Halloween items, have been retired from the Festival of the Four Wind vendors. They will remain available from their respective holiday vendors. So yeah, the Festival of the Four Winds kind of had a theme where it was like you could get a wide variety of different items and exotic wares. And in prior incarnations of it, that meant it kind of dipped into some other festivals. I think the devs want to be very clear. This festival offers this festival offers this, and just draw those lines properly. It makes sense to me. They say updated a number of kite items to display correctly if players ride mounts while using kites. The kites were some of the earliest kind of toy category items to come to the game, if I remember rightly. It was very shortly after these kites we got Season 2 and Dry Top, and the kite there that gave you more movement speed in a sandstorm and so on. But I think these came back to the gem store this release as well, so they've just done that little bit of an update. They say back pieces will be hidden when using the Bench of the Final Judge. The Bench of the Final Judge being the ultimate reward from Wing 5. It's the giant awesome throne that tipped us off that maybe a chair update was coming before it actually came. I'm sure people will be a bit upset that back pieces are turned off, but maybe some people will be happy because there was probably a lot of clipping issues going on there. Two fairly quick and boring ones here. The Armorsmith rating required for some of the Path of Fire armor recipes was accidentally at 500, I think, or 450, so they dropped it to 400 where it's consistent with the rest and makes sense. They fixed a bug with the volume of the new legendary Warhorn that came with Corner. And now lastly, here's a really cool one. Zomeros is now pleased to offer playable musical instrument versions of the legendary weapons Verderak and the Minstrel. Those who have already crafted the weapon component of these legendary instruments can obtain a replacement instrument from Saratok in the Undermarket in Lion's Arch.
I serve
So, what does this mean? Well, you might be thinking immediately, aren't there other vaguely musical weapons that are out there? But these two definitely make the most sense. And so, essentially what happens now is if you go for one of those two legendaries, you'll get the legendary and a music item. Remember, these are usually locked off for sale on the gem store only, that you can, you know, play beautiful songs on and go to that Guild Wars 2 music website and get macros for interesting pieces. This is kind of interesting to me. I've always appreciated and enjoyed the music instrument feature of the game and always adored it, but personally I've never really got into it and don't really have a talent for it. But now I've kind of been given one for free without having to use the gem store because I had already made the minstrel in the past. And so as fun as that was, something occurred to me that didn't when I was just reading it on the patch notes. And that's that this could be an entirely unique sound. Now, I'm not saying 100% if it is one way or another, but there are different instruments that produce different sounds in the game. And does that mean if you craft this new legendary, you get an instrument that nothing else on the gem store comes close to? Does the minstrels, it sounds like a harp, obviously, but does it sound like a slightly different harp to whatever previous incarnations of that kind of string instrument you could get on the gem store? I don't know, have harps precisely been sold in the past? If Verdurak does sound totally unique, I think that's really incredible as well. I'll tell you what, at the end of this video, I will splice in, completely unedited, my amazing talent as I played the minstrel, and you guys can tell me whether that sounds exactly like a gem store harp or not. Those of you who are really into the system, that is. And so, yeah, the reason why I'll be in the undermarket in that footage is because if you've crafted it in the past, it gets bunged onto one of those generic vendors, like where you get the Hall of Monument portal stone and stuff from the script in the undermarket. So, yeah, that's the item section. Now we can talk about the Roller Beetle, which had substantial changes. You guys will remember that the Roller Beetle was not necessarily unanimously loved as it was released because it is a very specific kind of mount for very specific areas. And I argued when we discussed this in the past on the channel that you have to be very careful about not power creeping the Beetle too much, otherwise it will just flat out be better than everything else. It'll be a Griffin style speed thing that you can get access to while at the ground on loads of different terrain. One of the main points people discussed was that when you get on the Beetle, it starts with 0 endurance, and that can be frustrating to deal with in a variety of different places, just moving around for one, but also when you're trying to smash through a barrier, if the barrier rebuilds and then you've got to go back through it, you're kind of just standing around waiting for endurance to go up a lot, and that's kind of boring. So they did a lot of changes in response to community feedback, but they were very careful about it in terms of not power creeping this thing, and they actually came to some pretty elegant solutions. So check this out. First of all, fixed a bug that sometimes prevented players from changing utility skills after dismounting. That never really hit me, but there you go. Roller Beetle. First of all, roll out, that's the engage ability, can now be used to break marked blockades and volatile crystals once players learn the barrier smash mastery. We heard about this on the AMA that the devs were going to do it, and it's already here with this release, so that's good. It now means that, remember, because your engage skill is not tied to endurance, you can smash barriers completely comfortably and easily. But they didn't stop there. Listen, the barrier smash mastery will now recover endurance when the Roller Beetle collides with walls at high speeds, in addition to its previous functionality. So basically, once you have the Beetle maxed out, if you go crashing and careening just straight up into a brick wall, it will give you, like, I think it's about 20 to 30% of your endurance back straight away, thus allowing you to reposition yourself and maybe boost very quickly forward again. So it's much less punishing to crash on this mount, which is something many of us, I know I certainly do quite often. And they go on. Look, drifting now recovers endurance. That one not tied to mastery. That's just basic Roller Beetle mechanics there. And it's not much endurance you get. You're still definitely going to be looking to do tricks and stuff. But that means there's even more endurance at play now. All these beautiful race courses people have built in their guild halls and designed out in Corteria might be worth a pass over now, because so much more speed will be available to people as they drift properly now. Drifting did feel a bit weird and a bit unnecessary sometimes, but now that that's tied to getting endurance, you really get like that Mario Kart style feel where you want to drift so you get that extra artificial boost on top, and you get that from the endurance recovery. They also say, and this is the really big quality of life one, that the Beetle's endurance will now slowly decay after players dismount rather than being immediately set to 0. So I have some footage you can see of this. basically, and it might be a little bit confusing, so just remember that your endurance for your mount is entirely its own. Your mount has its own endurance pool, its own endurance bar, so you can ignore when I'm not mounted what the endurance looks like when I'm just wandering around on my Mirage, okay? But so basically, it used to be when you got off of the Beetle, it just reset it to 0 straight away, and that meant you could stand around on the Beetle for ages, charge up a boost, dismount and get back on and get no benefit from it whatsoever. And you'd have to wait ages for the boost to come all the way back. Now, it's just slowly going down in the background. That means if you pre-charge a boost and then get off for a second to open a corner in chest or to do anything in the game, a little bit of combat, when you get back on your Beetle, as long as you've not been off it for too long, its endurance will still be near max and it will still generally be ready to go. So you can kind of stockpile that endurance and keep it held. It feels a lot like the old, I mean, how many of us care and interact with this that much anymore, but gliding boosting and how that's kind of a separate bar that is consistently growing in the background or shrinking in the background. It's like that for the Beetle. And so you can kind of have a lot more endurance now. These changes altogether means there's so much more access to that boost, it'll make your head spin. They keep going though. Listen to these two. Acceleration from idle has been increased. Deacceleration when holding backward at high speed has also been increased, so you have more control while moving fast. Minimum uphill speed has also been slightly increased, and they fixed a crash. So just all this quality of life and change for the Beetle there that hopefully addresses everyone's concerns with how it felt. And I know this conversation in this patch note makes it sound like it released in a horrendously broken state. It really didn't. So just all this stuff on top really should make it feel excellent. You can kind of tell that the mount team and the devs behind that stuff really care about making awesome mounts for this MMO. That's how we got the mount system we have today being so good and so far above its peers. And they're not scared to keep tweaking and refining and listen to what people say about the Roller Beetle. So there you go. And a big part of the patch, really, I think. Long after the festival is over, many of us will still be rolling around on our Beetles, and these will be the impactful moments. There was a little bit of profession balance here as well, a tiny bit. I'm just going to read it to you because there's not much to say. Meteor Shower, they fixed a bug that meant the initial impact was higher than intended. I don't know by how much, but there it is. Engineer, they say they fixed a bug on the new Toss Elixir U that prevented it from being able to break stuns and grant quickness. Just a reminder, Toss Elixir U got a radical change last patch. If you didn't see that, check out the video I did, Balance with Boots, on it. It used to be a completely different skill that dropped Reflect or Deflect walls. Now its functionality is totally different. Apparently there's a bug. Funny thing though, apparently the underwater version of Toss Elixir U, they forgot to update. And I thought on this patch, when I saw a patch note for it, that's what they were going to change. No, apparently not. So yeah, good job ArenaNet. They have a change for Guardian. The shield of the Avenger was blocking unblockable projectiles, and they've fixed that because it was unintended functionality. And actually an interesting idea for that skill to make it see some more use, what with the unblockable Soul Beast Longbow Pew Pew stuff raining hell in PvP right now. And then lastly, Thief. Yeah, you saw it coming. Double Strike, reduced the damage by 19% in PvE. Wild Strike, reduced the damage by 18% in PvE. Shadow Flare fixed a bug that allowed the Thief to have more than one flare out at a time. If you're scratching your head as to why they did this, and you're upset because you're a Thief player and you've just been nerfed on the dagger, you have to understand, as of the most recent balance patch, Deadeye damage was obscene for running your daggers, and those, they're just trying to rein it in a little bit. It was definitely over buffed, and this is probably the first of a few rein-ins. You're still going to be pretty goddamn strong. So there you go. That's the profession balance. Now, some other exciting stuff, including something you saw in the title. We'll go to SPVP and World vs. World. PvP didn't have too much. Players are now instantly defeated if they get into the enemy team's base in all Conquest maps. You might think, oh, well, is that really that important? It kind of is, because there are a lot of jumping puzzle bugs, say in Skyhammer and Kylo, that allow you to jump into the enemy team's base. And they've now properly put those kill zones everywhere. It was a real problem on Skyhammer, frankly, where you could go and troll people, keep them in combat so they couldn't assign their builds in the pre-game lobby. Just nasty things like that. So, yay. But then they've also changed the tournament vouchers. So, not many people are playing ATs at the moment. They say they adjusted the number of tournament vouchers given for 1st through 4th place. Adjusted, what does that mean? You get more overall? You get less overall? I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't familiar with the rewards before. And they also adjusted the prices on the vendor. I do have footage of that in the background for you guys, and those very discerning AT PvPers in the comments might be able to say some more. But overall, I don't know whether this was a big change. But World vs. World. Edge of the Mists a new arena area has been added. This area can be accessed from the starting points. Okay, so you're going to be looking at footage of this in the background over all the Wild vs. Wild patch notes. What they've done here is they've now added an arena of this rough size to all 3 formats of the game. So you can play PvP under the PvE rule set in your guild halls, under the PvP rule set in actual PvP, or in that brawling area that was recently updated and added to Heart of the Mist, which was awesome, and now to Wild vs. Wild. You might wonder, why have they done this? Because the Obsidian Sanctum had an update a few years back now that also added an arena, quite a large one, for GVGs and the like. So why are they still, why do they feel need to do it in Edge of the Mist? I'm guessing the idea of Edge of the Mist is because it's like the overflow thing and it's not actually server-oriented, it's just color-oriented. If you do it in Edge of the Mist, it's open for people of all number of servers that can come together, and you're not relying on the specific matchups of the current state of World vs. World. So it is better to host in Edge of the Mist, and this is in theory more useful than the Obsidian Sanctum, which was otherwise tied. I think that's the idea. And if you're looking in the background and looking at the chat that's going on in the bottom left there, you might notice it's quite small. I don't know why ArenaNet keep doing this. I'm not a big GVGer. I don't focus that much on World vs. World, but even I can tell you straight away, this is too small, surely, right? You're not going to have big GVGs and stuff going on here because it looks very pretty and it's very nice, and I like the detail and it's an interesting area to explore, but I think it's too small to be fit for purpose. And I'm amazed that nearly every time we've seen this update come in, I, myself, and the community have nearly always said, it's too small, it's too small, it's too small, it's too small. So a real shame, and I wonder if it'll be use. I hope I'm wrong about this, but there you have it. On the bright side, I will say it's fun to see updates to these areas. There's something really exciting about old maps getting new areas to explore that you don't quite get that feeling from new maps entirely unlocking. It's just cool to be there in the Edge of the Mist and look back at regular World vs. World. Here, if you pause the video, you can look at a large chunk of changes to Siege. Some of it I quite like the look of. There's a change to Burning Oil here, which means you are much more resistant to damage and condition damage when you have the Mastery, which was always one of the really punishing things about Burning Oil. It seems like they've just shuffled around the efficacy of what Siege they want to be good at doing what, which precisely in this list is the most potent of changes. I don't really know, but you'll see that the number of targets from AC has gone down from 50 to 25. That seems interesting. Shield generators can't shield other shield generators anymore. Updated Ballast just to make them more reliable. It will take a much more informed World vs. World palette to give you the good opinion there, and I hope someone's got it below. So there you go. That's pretty much the big patch. There is finally, as always, gem store updates. A new helmet pack, the branded stuff is back, the kites are back. For Black Lion chest, fused stuff has reappeared, I believe. Phoenix stuff has appeared. There's really a lot of nostalgic throwbacks and lots of reasons for you to get gems and open those Black Lion chests. Again, you guys can pause the video for the explicit details on that if you like there too. But there you go, guys. That is the introduction of the Bazaar of the Four Winds and the Crown Pavillion returning to the game. Stay tuned because I'll have lots of cool exploration and talk about all that awesome bullet-pointed list that we've got of new meaty stuff to sink our teeth into. Let me know if you feel like I've missed something on this video. I hope you feel a little bit more in the loop with this. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back super soon. I'm going to get back in game and play. Oh, and enjoy my wonderful music on the minstrel. Cheers. Beautiful, right?